Hello and welcome to Old Toy, New Joy, the show where I share with you my previously enjoyed toys I purchased from online sources, collectors, shows, and thrift stores that once belonged to someone else. Yes, today I've decided to dedicate another episode to my baseball card collection. I just received this card in the mail, and if you don't recognize it, it's a Mother's Cookies baseball card. This one from 1953, and it's of Tom Alston. So today we're going to be talking about my small assortment of integration era baseball cards made by Mother's Cookies and a similar source for the Pacific Coast League. So Mother's Cookies produced baked goods from around 1914 all the way up until about 2008. And they produced baseball cards in 1952 and 53, and then throughout the 80s and 90s, I think from 1983 to 1998. We're going to be talking about the cards made in 1952 and 53 for players who helped integrate the Pacific Coast League. In 1952, Mother's Cookies put out a 64 card set, and in 1953 it was a 63 card set. And one card was found in most of their packaged products. So what is the Pacific Coast League? It was comprised of 8 minor league teams: the Hollywood Stars, the Los Angeles Angels, the Oakland Oaks, the Portland Beavers, the Sacramento Salons, the San Diego Padres, the San Francisco Seals, and the Seattle Rainiers. And the Pacific Coast League was never recognized as a true major league. However, it did include many top players who would be drafted by the major leagues. So in 1952, Mother's Cookies put out cards for Frankie Alston, Roy Welmaker, Artie Wilson, Gene Baker, and Bob Thurman. In 1953, they put out cards for Tom Alston, Roy Welmaker, and Piper Davis. And there were many players who played around that time, either before the 51 season or after the 52 season, who did not receive a baseball card, and perhaps they should have. And we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. So, all in all, I have 3 baseball cards put out by Mother's Cookies in the 1950s. Here you see Frankie Alston. I got him just a couple weeks ago. Tom Alston, who arrived today. And probably my favorite, Artie Wilson, which I purchased last year. Not super rare, but still not overly common. And not always out there on eBay. I had to be patient. I had to compete for 2 of these cards. I lost out a few times from being outbid. And so I just had to be patient and realistic. And eventually I got 3 beautiful cards for my collection. So let's talk about these players for a moment. Here's Frankie Alston. He integrated the Portland Beavers in 1949 along with Louis Marquez. And he was actually signed by the New York Yankees back in 49, but he never played a major league game. Tom Alston would integrate the St. Louis Cardinals of the major leagues in 54, and I do have a 55 Bowman of Tom Alston, which I featured in my baseball card collection episode. But before that, he played for the San Diego Padres from 52 to 53. And his contract was sold to the Cardinals for a then whopping $10,000. And here we have Artie Wilson, who played 19 games for the New York Giants in 1951. But before that, he played for the San Diego Padres in 49, which Johnny Ritchey had already integrated. Artie then himself integrated the Oakland Oaks in 51, and then the Seattle Rainiers along with the great Bob Boyd. He would play for 6 out of the 8 Pacific Coast League teams between the years of 1949 and 1962. So this is what the back of the 52 Mother's Cookies card looks like. Not much in the way of stats. Most of the card is dedicated to some treasure hunt sensational stamp offer. But the player's batting average, fielding average for the 51 season is given. And here's the 53 top, similar. You get actually, you get more stats actually, don't you? For the 52 season, they give a full line of stats, runs, hits percentage, doubles, triples, RBIs, home runs, all that. And then again, an ad, this time for an album. I've never seen the album, but apparently there was an album available for the 53 Mother's Cookies cards. And you're looking at these and you're thinking, well, wait a minute, I thought she said there weren't Mother's Cookies for everybody. These look like no Mother's Cookies cards. These are not Mother's Cookies cards. These are cards designed by the late artist Carl Aldana. And he used the Mother's Cookies template to commemorate players who helped integrate the PCL in the late 40s and early 50s who did not have baseball cards, either because they played before the 51-52 seasons, which were covered by the Mother's Cookies sets, or after those seasons, or for whatever reason, they just weren't given cards. And there are certainly more players than this, but Piper Davis, Johnny Ritchey again, who was the Jackie Robinson of the PCL because he integrated in 48, shortly after Jackie integrated in the major leagues. Alonzo Perry, Buzz Clarkson, Maury Wills, and Booker McDaniels here. Carl Aldana also made cards for Bob Boyd and Luke Easter and a few others, which I'm hoping to get my hands on. And then here are 4 different backs that Carl used on his cards. I think these are authentic ads from the 50s, I think. Mother's Cookies ad, and then a checklist for the Oaks and for the Rainiers and for the Los Angeles Angels. And I think he did a beautiful job. And back to the fronts of the cards, they look so much like an original card. I mean, can't really tell, especially if you don't have a trained eye on this. It totally looks like a card that would have existed back then. And their Mother's Cookies cards, they're very colorful, especially when you compare them to Topps and Bowman cards from that era. I love the picture he used, how he colorized it, and then it pops against a nice solid background color. So thank you for letting me share my Integration Era Pacific Coast League baseball cards. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked the video, please like the video, and we'll keep them coming. A new video each week, that's our deal. So until the next time, this is your Toy Whisperer saying goodbye from Old Toy, New Joy.